Hey guys, what's up? It's your man Pete, and I thought I would do a video here talking about sort of why sometimes people get stuck in a rut and don't end up moving even though they know they should have a few years ago. And of course, the world is moving a whole lot faster now. People move around a lot more frequently. The average move time is somewhere around 5 to 7 years. Meanwhile, our parents, the boomers, they ended up staying in their homes for maybe 15, 20, or even 30 years. And there comes a point sometimes where you run out of space and your possessions end up owning and clobbering you and sucking you into a black hole. And as our old friend Tyler Durden used to say in Fight Club, your possessions end up owning you. But I just wanted to highlight some of the reasons why people get stuck and they can't think about why they should move. And it usually has to do with something up here, right? Like they just don't think it's possible for them to move, especially as house prices continue to keep going up and up and up. But then of course, whenever space starts getting tight, you start getting into more fights, more arguments, you start feeling more stressed because you've run out of space. There's just too much stuff and clutter all around the house. And usually it's sort of times like this where you need a really big refresh. Like a spring cleaning is not going to do it. And to be honest, sometimes a really disorganized house can actually lead to stress, fighting with your spouse, disagreements, and even frustration with your children because of course you're all in very close quarters fighting over space. And sometimes you end up having more bodies and kids or even in-laws in the house that you didn't anticipate when you first moved into the place. And yes, of course, I get it. I totally get it. Moving does suck. You know, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of motivation in order to do that. But sometimes it takes something very drastic, something very big for you to think about moving and packing up your stuff or even throwing away all of your stuff and then starting new again at a new sparkly property. But thankfully for all my clients and for you watching this show, we have a process and a system in place to help you transition out of your old home into your new one. And we really try to do it as seamlessly as possible. And sometimes we even make it a little bit more fun for you too. But there always comes a point where people are demanding and craving change, whether that's actually more space or they actually just want to be in a new neighborhood, experience something different, and just have a new flavor in their life. And then oftentimes we do have to think about what's best for our families too, right? Like what our spouses want, what our kids want, what's better for them school-wise or neighborhood-wise, community-wise. And as a father myself, I know it can be difficult, but it's really imperative that we think about what's usually best for our kids and our growing families. So this is why my trusted clients come to me, because I can help them project manage every single detail to make it as seamless and painless as possible. And in the end, when they usually move, they're actually incredibly happy that they did. And then they start discovering new things that they love about their home and their neighborhood. And typically people don't usually look back. And so a really major job of being a real estate agent is helping people to project manage this process, you know, helping them come up with ideas and solutions and things that we can do to make this process easier and to help them focus on the new vision, the new home, and this sort of big new refresh that you're about to go through. But enough of all the intro and the preamble. We're going to get right into it right after this, guys. Okay, so one of the reasons why people get stuck in a rut and end up staying in their homes for a really long time or even longer than they should is old-fashioned thinking. You know, like it or not, most of us end up being like our parents because of the exposure and the things that we hear or we see when we were growing up. And of course, one of those old ideas is that once you buy a home or once you buy a house, you're going to stay in there forever. But that's clearly not the case anymore, right? There's a lot more movement happening. People sort of get tired. They move around because of different jobs, or they just want to experience a new neighborhood, or they want to move into a newer house versus living in the 100-year-old Victorian house that constantly needs work all the time. But yeah, it's kind of funny how we can sort of get exposed and get stuck into those ideas, you know, of that sort of white picket fence type house where mom is wearing an apron like all the time, even in the shower. But no, it's 2021, guys, and we crave change. We crave refreshment. We crave, you know, something new and exciting, a new project that we can sink our teeth into. And that's actually one of the most exciting parts of this job that I really love and enjoy in working with my clients, is helping them project manage that process and to help them sort of declutter their minds and focus on what's important going into the future for themselves and for their families. Because like those old sweaters sitting in your closet, sometimes they can get old, stale, and they don't even fit anymore. Houses are the same way. So another reason why people get stuck and don't want to move is they're lazy and they're comfortable. Yes, it's so easy to be lazy and comfortable in your own home. It's your sanctuary, it's your safe place, it's the place where you can walk around in your underwear and nobody's really going to say anything. Unless, of course, you're living with the in-laws too. But yeah, it's your ultimate comfort zone, right? And so you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to disrupt that. You don't want to change anything. But just to give you a news flash, that's exactly what you need. So all of those reasons why you don't want to change are the reasons why you should should change because it stimulates our brains. It gives us a mission. It gives us an objective. And of course, we want to do what's best for our family and our kids. And so these are all important ingredients for you to live a good life. You want to keep things fresh. You want to keep things fun. So these are all very important ingredients to living a good life. So don't be afraid to try something new because you might actually like it. And who knows, maybe after 10 years, you're actually a different person. Is that possible? Okay, number 3. People hate packing, and I totally understand why. I have trouble myself with organizing and keeping things straight around the house on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to packing and moving, I have no problems. I'm like a busy bee in the spring collecting pollen and making honey when it comes to packing and moving my own stuff, and also when it comes to helping and guiding my clients on how they can do it better when they need to make a move. Because when you stayed at a house for a very long time, odds are that you've been collecting a lot of stuff, and so it's been accumulating over the years because you're always buying stuff and bringing it into the home, and now you can actually even purchase online, and so stuff is delivered right to your door. You're going to be accumulating more and more stuff. So that's why the thought of moving, it gives people a lot of stress because they have to think, they have to decide what stays, what goes in the maybe pile, because 20 minutes later the maybe pile ends up being bigger than the throwaway pile. So this is why it's important to hire a good real estate agent, or in some cases, if you're in the hoarder zone, to hire a professional organizer and people who can actually help you declutter and remove stuff out of your house. So it's such a big job that it can be demoralizing. However, there are tricks and strategies in terms of how to organize quickly, more efficiently, and better. But a really big pro tip that I'm going to give you here is that sometimes it's actually better to buy your next home because that's actually going to get you motivated. It's going to get you excited, and that usually ends up being the trigger and the spark that gets you going to pack up and to move out of your current house. That's a serious pro tip, and I definitely recommend that you do that in this market here in the Greater Toronto area right now, especially because it's harder to purchase a home than it is to sell. Number 4, lack of confidence. This one is a little bit tricky because it's such an emotional thing, especially when it comes to money and personal finances. But oftentimes people are so comfortable and so complacent where they are that they don't even think about crunching the numbers or figuring out whether it's time to move or upgrade and upsize into a newer and better home, perhaps in the suburbs. And every week that goes by, it becomes more and more expensive. But in times like opportunities like right now, there are low interest rates. In fact, there are record low interest rates. And we're actually experiencing boomers and seniors actually downsizing out of the homes, which is something that we didn't see 5 or even 10 years ago as often as we're seeing right now. And so it's important to actually look at your numbers, right? Crunch the numbers a little bit because, the money out there is basically free coming from the banks and mortgage lenders these days. And so sometimes if you can work the numbers and the magic just right, you might not be paying that much more for a bigger and nicer home. Because the upswing is that, yes, you are paying more for a newer property or a bigger home, but at the same time, over the 10 years that you've been living in your condo or your townhouse, that has gone up as well too. So it's accumulated equity and appreciation for you, which you can carry over into your new home. And so it's not going to hurt as bad as if, for example, a first-time home buyer who's trying to save up every single penny and trying to purchase their first house. But again, if you need help on the financing side, or you don't understand the numbers, or you don't know how you can work things out, we have mortgage brokers and financing people who can help you make arrangements so that the mortgage becomes a lot more comfortable for you and something that you can manage. So don't be shy to ask me if we end up working together on purchasing your next home. Okay, hating debt. Here's another one of those old-fashioned things that, a lot of people get stuck in, and they think, okay, I'm going to buy a home and I'm going to, sort of sit on it and just try to pay down the mortgage in 20 or 30 years, which basically means you're going to live in the same home for 20 or 30 years trying to pay off that mortgage. So, okay, yeah, that's possible. You could do that. That's sort of something what our parents did, but we just don't really live in a debt-free world. It's not really practical, wouldn't you agree? Because we would really be falling behind as a society and as an economy if everyone was just sitting there trying to pay off their mortgage and staying in the same house for 20 or 30 years. And just as an example to illustrate to you that not all debt is bad debt, so having a mortgage at these rates is basically like free money. And if you ever had any doubts about my claims, if you're somebody that owns property and you wanted to go and apply for, say, a home equity line of credit or a secured line of credit, banks and lenders are going to be throwing money at you and the rates are going to be incredibly low. That's not necessarily bad debt because it's secured against your property and they're more than happy to lend to you because you actually have some net worth. Now, I'm definitely not saying you should be taking on more debt or more loans, but my point is to say that having a property assists you in being able to get more loans, and the thought and the idea of sitting on one property so you can pay down the mortgage, meanwhile other properties or bigger homes are accelerating in price and you could be capturing some of that appreciation, that seems to be the better move. And if you really wanted to be more aggressive on the mortgage and to pay it down, on the new property, then there's definitely different strategies that you can deploy, such as paying, in higher frequencies and allowing for more lump sum payments at the end of the year on your mortgage. And then as the property market continues to go up, this will become your future nest egg. If you can't do that with a smaller property, you can do that better with a bigger property, the one you're going to upsize into. All right, and the last one, fear of change and fear of the unknown. This one is obviously a very big mental hurdle for people to get over because they're comfortable. They know where all the stores are at. They know exactly how long it takes to get to a certain location, but to me, that sort of gets tired and boring and stale after a while. I don't think anybody wants to live life that way. Maybe some people do. But for me, I like change. We move about every 3 to 5 years. And it's not just because I'm in the industry, but it's a great way to capture appreciation and gains on your property. And it allows me to experience a new neighborhood that I've always wanted to try out and wanted to experience, especially as we mature in life and we've got children. So I guess throughout that process, I've been able to establish a pretty good packing and organizing system. And so I apply that into my business with my clients, and they're generally very cooperative and they take my feedback very, very well because, again, we're focusing on what the future is. We're not stuck in the present and in the past. We want to look towards a brighter future, greener pastures. And so if you've got a little bit of an adventurous side, or it's just, you just feel like it's time to move on, then you definitely want to give us a call here at Selling Toronto because we can help you manage this entire process. We've got a whole team of people in place that can not only help you organize and declutter, but we can also do renovations, light touch-ups, handiwork, or we can help you arrange a nice big container and you just throw all your stuff in there and then you can figure it out later. So if you find yourself in this situation where you're running out of space, your household's becoming a lot bigger, and obviously living space and conditions matters a lot more, so maybe you'd like to have a gym or a 2-car garage, basement, a backyard, some sort of proper living space for your growing family, then we are the ones who are going to be able to help you best here at Selling Toronto. So don't be shy to give us a shout and we'd be happy to help you manage through the transition. And what I always like to say to my clients is we're not selling homes, we're transforming lives. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment below, hit the subscribe button. I'm so grateful and appreciative that we've crossed 3,000 subscribers, and I hope to continue to give you guys more valuable experience when it comes to buying and selling a home here in the Greater Toronto Area. So we'll see you guys in the next one, and bye for now.